We're grateful for who God is. That list of names given, holy and mighty and all of that, that's just the beginning of things. When Jesus was jousting with the Pharisees, Jesus made it clear to them that when you start talking about me, you're talking about something that surpasses Abraham. Because before Abraham was, he said, my name is I am. In other words, when you open up the book to look at all of the good things that a person can possibly be mighty and triumphant and awesome and holy, he says that that's just the beginning of it. He had to close the book.
Who I am, America. My name is Bristle Hay IV, born in Brooklyn, New York in the year of 1988. My mother, Jennifer Milhouse Hay, and to my father, Bristle Hay III. Who I am, America. Ever since I can remember, I envisioned a life for myself that was grander and bigger than the people around me. And that is not to say that the people around me didn't deserve more. I just dreamed really big. Who I am, America. In 11th grade, I figured out what I was going to do in my life. I was going to be the most famous Black opera singer to ever live. Who I am, America. That drove me all the way to my higher education. I took my undergraduate studies at SUNY Purchase College, and I did my master's studies at Binghamton University, all in classical music. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who are we standing in front of? But the foundations that set this path is unlike anything that you would think. I'm gonna rewind. Who I am, America. In the 6th grade, I remember the hardest conversation I've ever had. My mom sat me down and said, Bristle, your father is an alcoholic. It shook me to my core. For one, I wasn't sure what alcoholism was. For two, I just knew that he was a different person than the person I was growing up with for the first 10 years of my life. It hurt. But I had a mom that sustained our home, and she made sure that we was always safe. I had a brother who was my best friend, and in moments when it was the weakest of us, we had each other. And concurrently, by the time I got to my next years in my life, that's when I found music, which I truly believe is the very thing that saved me and got me out of my circumstance. In the 7th and 8th grade, I went to Ronald Elman's Learning Center, which is a specialized junior high school. Now, when they say specialized, they simply mean that you are talented enough to get into a more private education for free. Now, the thing that I found most valuable in my older age is that that very thing removed me away from my circumstance. I'll back up again. Who I am, America. Because I grew up in Bed-Stuy in the 90s, you can imagine I saw a lot of gangs. I saw a lot of violence. And the first thing that removed me from that environment was music. And to this day, I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to expand and learn something different. Who I am, America. From the junior high school years at Ronald Elman Learning Center, it drove me and took me to my high school years at the Professional Performing Arts School, where I found one of the biggest influences of my life, Miss Chantel Wright. Now, why she was much of an influence? She was the first person to tell me that, Bristle, you are not where you came from. You are where you want to go. She challenged me to think differently, to be different, and truly figure out who I am and own it. Now, remember, at the same time, concurrently, my dad was still in my home dealing with alcoholism. I remember walking in home sometimes and having physical fights with him. I remember being screamed at. I remember being minimized. But I also remember the very thing that saved me, which was music, and at that time, God. I'm forever grateful for those opportunities and that community that was built by my mentor, Chantel Wright, because it allowed me to be able to hug people when I needed to be held the most. And what it did is give me experiences that showed me that the world is bigger and so much beyond the Brooklyn bubble. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. The Brooklyn bubble is just as similar as the Baltimore bubble or as the Canadian bubble. Wherever you were and you don't recognize that you have a chance to expand, that's your bubble. Music, and right, my family and friends gave me an opportunity to burst my bubble. Now, after my education years at SUNY Binghamton, I actually stopped singing. I had what you call vocal nodules, which required me to get vocal surgery, and I could not sing anymore. And it was honestly one of the best things that happened to me. The very thing that saved my life, I became attached to in a way where I couldn't breathe or live without it. But the truth was that once that was snatched away from me, I had an opportunity to learn and be different. Who I am, America. Now, out of that entire chronology that I just sent you, there's one fact that drove me and made me who I am today. I was an obese kid from the time that I can remember. So, my dad was an alcoholic. I was living in Brooklyn in one of the worst crime areas noted in history, and I was an obese kid who had no resources, no education, or no possibility to be different. Obesity followed me throughout my entire young adult life, through junior high school when I started music, to high school when I really found who I was going to be, all the way to my undergraduate studies at SUNY Purchase, and it finally stopped going into my master's program. And here's why. Who I am, America. My dad, who suffered with alcoholism, died at the tender age of 47. He drank himself to his end. When he passed away during going into my senior year in college, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I knew that we made amends. I knew that I loved him, but I also didn't know what was coming next. Everything that I saw him do, my behavior began to pattern a part of my grief. I thought I was just living, being a college student, but then I recognized I was drinking more than ever. I was eating more than ever, and I blew up to 300 pounds at my size. Now I bet you're wondering, how did this all connect? Well, it does. I was a broke kid living in poverty in a trauma-ridden environment, and I became exactly the thing that I wanted to fight against. After that study, that final year in my undergrad study, after we buried my dad, my brother and I looked at ourselves and we said, can we be different? And we chose to be different. It was the first time I exercised in that summer of 2010, and we lost 100 pounds. I lost 100 pounds in year one. Why is this important? Because when I stopped singing and I couldn't sing anymore, I found fitness. Fitness allowed me to express myself, express my body, and finally change the generational curses that was against me my entire life. What I appreciate the most about the transition from music to fitness was the calling that it did from my inner being. Where singing was my passion and it's something I really enjoyed, it wasn't necessarily who I was. Who I am is one of service. Who I am is one to help. And I couldn't quite find that niche as a singer. As a singer, I had to worry about how I sang. I had to worry about how people perceived me, but not necessarily what I was doing to serve people. Fitness allowed me to find that. So, who I am, America. I guess I would say from the age of birth until my 22-year-old self, after my master's program, I'm one of flexibility, one of change, and a Black man who was able to take his original circumstance and change it to the better good. Who I am, America. Who I am, America. After I finished my master's studies and I found fitness, I would truly say I found it for me. And I didn't even see it as the means to be able to help and serve other people. But as you can imagine, once I lost 120 pounds, I began to get a bunch of questions about, well, what did you do? Well, how did you do it? And of course, can you help me do it? Because of the circles I was in, music, being from Brooklyn and poor neighborhoods, the finding people that lacked a wellness regimen and lacked an exercise regimen wasn't hard. We can assume that most people don't do these things. In fact, the statistic says that most people do not exercise and do not eat well. But I took that intrigue and the inquisition that people gave me to be able to see truly how can I help people the same way I help myself. And I won't say that I was self-made. I had a lot of aid in transforming my body. I used tapes, I used read articles, and I listened to anybody that had, as they would say, the keys to really transforming the body. So after I decided to, hey, let me see how I can do this, I began to get my certifications, and I began to really figure out if I'm going to help people, how can I do it the best way that I can? Position myself for the highest success. So I was working in a hospital, who I am America, picking up jobs and odd jobs after my master's program, trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do since music wasn't in my headspace anymore. After I was working, I began to get my certification for training, and sure enough, as I started to help people and do it for free, really to just get experience, I found another passion. And I would say that you speak to a lot of people, and having one passion is really hard sometimes. They say like, hey, I used to like things when I was younger, but I didn't really stick with it. I was fortunate enough by the age of 25 to find two things that really drove me to be the best possible. And this latter thing that has stayed on for the last 8 years has been fitness. So once I got my certification, I joined my first commercial gym as a trainer, and I started to work. And what I found was that I was a little different from most people in terms of how I approached my job. I was scholastic, but yet I had a flexibility to be able to give the client what they need. That ended up giving me a reputation of a high earner and high producing personal trainer. Now, nowadays I like to say that I think I'm more than a trainer, but it truly was the thing that set off my journey to fitness and wellness. That thing that got me right here. Who I am, America. Today, I would say in the best words that I'm a service provider. I am here to serve. And when you get me or how you get me, that may depend. Because you may get me as a group fitness instructor, or you may get me in a one-on-one capacity, or you may get me as the director of a nonprofit. Who I am, America. I founded Bristle and Trent, Inc., which is an equitable health solution to bring solutions, mental health amenities, physical health amenities, and nutritional amenities to underserved communities. I built, to me, what was lacking for my life growing up. Who I am, America. What's very particular about Facing It Together, Inc. and my career right now is that the entire pivot came from the death of my sister in the year 2020. In June 2020, my oldest sister, Nght passed away. In doing so, I got the privilege to adopt my niece and nephew, who is now 13 and 10. What this allowed me to do, and what it stressed me to do, and my beautiful wife, is to figure out how do you truly show up and serve people? How do you make and have a sacrificial part of your life, but still make yourself whole? Because I won't lie, in doing so, it truly put me to the brink. I was not sure one day if I could go on. But what I had was a foundation of wellness, a foundation of mental health services and thought processes, and a nutritional roadmap to be able to get myself whole again. And I would say between the events from finally finding fitness and today, which is an 8-year gap, a 9-year gap now, actually next month, it truly has given me the opportunity to give and serve people in an efficient and optimal way. And when I say optimal, what I mean is that are we giving these things that everyone needs on every level? So a lot of times we see services, then we see charities, and we see organizations that they give a little. But then you have to jump back and forth, place to place, to be able to really find the formula for your success. And I believe that Facing It Together, Inc., that we're really creating an organization that handles a very complicated problem on a multitude of levels. The problem as we see it is the lack of access, inequities in terms of our generational and our social problems. We call it social determinants, whereas where you grew up and because you're in poverty, you'll just have a low chance of living. And to us, that's wrong. And we believe that if we can start facing these problems at the grassroots level or at the beginning level in adolescence and childhood, then we can start changing generations just by giving people the ability to change themselves and the information to always know how to steer their course in the right direction. For that, I'm privileged. For that, I'm grateful to be able to serve people into the capacity that I wish I would serve. So sometimes people say like, well, why did you make FIT? And truly, I guess the most honest answer is I created the thing that I wish I had the most when I was growing up. And I hope that people feel the same way. Who I am, America. I am love, I am happiness, and I am Black joy. I am privileged to be able to walk every day in life with the vision and the mission to be able to serve our Black and brown people through health and wellness services. If you find fit to be able to find us, our organization, and help and kind of root us on, please follow us on Instagram at Facing It Together, Inc. We know that we won't disappoint. And above all, if you know that you have something and you can do something to save or change a life, I'm asking you today, please do it. My name is Bristle IV, and I am made in America.
We're grateful for who God is. That list of names given, holy and mighty and all of that, that's just the beginning of things. When Jesus was jousting with the Pharisees, Jesus made it clear to them that when you start talking about me, you're talking about something that surpasses Abraham. Because before Abraham was, he said, my name is I am. In other words, when you open up the book to look at all of the good things that a person can possibly be mighty and triumphant and awesome and holy, he says that that's just the beginning of it. He had to close the book.
Wow, you know what? Who am I, America? I'm DeAndre Ivory. And I tell you what, growing up in my household, of course, first of all, originally from St. Louis, Missouri, grew up in the Boo Hill, small town called Nght, Missouri. Started out, of course, in a traditional home. Mother, father, both working. I am the second child of 3 sons, so I'm the middle son. often referred to by my mom and my dad as the middle boy. I'll tell you, growing up in my family, I never actually thought that I would be a comedian or doing comedy, things like that. Actually, I was always sort of an introvert or a shy person. But growing up in my household, I grew up in a household that it had a lot of love, but also there was tragedy in the sense that it was an abusive household as far as my mom and my dad were concerned, because my dad was abusive to my mom. And so growing up watching that, the thing about that was I actually ended up, going to comedy and wanting to make people laugh, because I found that was a way to put a smile on my mom's face. And I always wanted to see my mom smile. I always wanted to see her laugh. So I was always doing silly things, saying silly things, just to do that. It kind of carried over, of course, in school. Of course, straight A student, all through Head Start, kindergarten, elementary school grades, and then funny thing happened. And this is some of the pitfalls of peer pressure. One of the things that happened was in the 5th grade, we took a test, and based on my score, my overall score of the aptitude test, I was granted a position in the gifted program because I scored a 92 or above on the aptitude test. And there were only 5 of us in the entire school, both 5th and 6th grade. So of all the 5th graders and all the 6th graders, there were only 5 of us that actually scored 92 or better on the aptitude test. And so we were in what's known as a gifted program, which meant every Thursday, we would actually get a chance to get together with a special instructor, the 5 of us, every Thursday for 4 hours, and basically just be creative. And I really did enjoy being in the gifted program at first, but then what happened was the other students started making fun of me during the week, and they called me nerd, and they say things like, "Look, there's DeAndre, he's gifted," because not only was I in the gifted program, but I was the only African American in the gifted program. So being the only person of color, that I definitely stuck out like a sore thumb. And so I began to be constantly cheesed by other students who basically made it seem like it was a bad thing. So I actually became embarrassed for being quote unquote gifted. And because of that, I actually let it affect my grades, because the following school year, I decided I didn't want people to call me a nerd or call me gifted. So because of that, I would actually let my grades slip purposely. I wouldn't do the homework. I would make sure that there were certain tests that I wouldn't try that hard on, just so people wouldn't make fun of me and give me the stigmatism as I thought it was of being a nerd or being gifted. And so what I learned years later, of course, into adulthood, I realized that, you know what, there's nothing wrong with being special. There's nothing wrong with excelling. Being gifted or excelling in school, trying hard and achieving certain goals. There's nothing wrong with that. And you shouldn't let people discount that or make you feel bad about being smart or intelligent or being gifted. We're all gifted in some sort of way. We all have gifts that God has blessed us with. And it's up to us to cultivate those things and maximize those things. But of course, in a humble way. You know, as I, you know, grew up, of course, I grew up in church from the Baptist church to Church of God in Christ to non-denominational. So God has always played a very impactful and powerful, important role in my life. And again, being the second or the middle child of three boys, you know, it was always hard for me to stand out because, you know, my younger and my older brother, they were both straight A students as well. And seeing and hearing some of the things they call my older brother, they call him Turtle because he always had a book bag on, you know, on his back, and Nerd. You know, once they started making fun of me for being in a gifted program, I was like, man, I don't want to, you know, I don't want that. But the thing is, you should never, ever feel bad or let someone make you feel bad for excelling and achieving. Okay. One thing I realized growing up is my mom and dad, after even before and of course after they were divorced, they always told me, no matter what, keep your circle small. Everybody's not your friend. Everybody's not your friend. And I found that going through life, that people wish you well. 9 times out of 10, though, they don't wish you as well as them. Meaning they want to see you do good, just not as good or better than them. So my challenge to the youth today is to stand up and stand out, because there's nothing wrong with achieving. There's nothing wrong with excelling. Getting back into the comedy thing, where I am today with doing my comedy, I was on the when I got into when I entered into high school in the 9th grade, my freshman year. And what's so important about that, I was on the speech and debate team. Well, being on the speech and debate team, I came in with a reputation as a jokester, a class clown, somebody that was just really funny. You know, I did all the Easter plays in church and all that. So, you know, I was proud of the fact that, you know, even as a 5-year-old, you know, during the Easter play, my speech was just as long, if not longer than, you know, kids that were, you know, twice my age, you know, and I would always memorize mine and I would never read it. While other kids, even the older kids would be reading theirs throughout the paper, I would always have mine memorized. Of course, I had my little Easter suit on and I was sharp. You couldn't tell me nothing. But it's funny, when I look at where I am today and being on the speech and debate team, one thing that I found in being on the speech and debate team in high school and in college is that you can make an argument for anything. And I challenge the youth today to make an argument for themselves as it pertains to being successful, as it pertains to achieving. Why should you want to achieve? Why shouldn't you want to stand out? Why shouldn't you want to be the very best? There's nothing wrong with you separating yourself from people who are not doing their very best or not standing out. You know what? The most successful people in the world, literally, are the people who said, you know what? I'm not going to be like everyone else because everyone else is not achieving at the level that I want to achieve. We all dream. Some of us just dream in color. And so I challenge all of you today to dream in color. And make sure when you dream in color, when you wake up, remember that dream. And so when you start to achieve and you start on your path, just know that no matter what, at the end of the day, the only person that can judge you for your successes and failures are really you. And of course, God judges us all. But that's in the afterlife. On this earth, you'll be your own judge and jury. So will you be found guilty or innocent of doing your very best? All right, man, I tell you what, this comedy thing, let's get into, how I actually got into stand-up comedy. It's funny because I never saw myself as a stand-up comedian, ever. I end up actually doing stand-up comedy on a dare. At work, cracking jokes at work, and somebody, just half-heartedly made the comment, it's one thing to be funny, at work, but why don't you try getting on the stage? If you, Mr. Comedian, you want to be a comedian, why don't you take it to the stage? You need to be on somebody's stage. And so when they said that, I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I actually, man, I got in the phone book and looked at the local comedy club here in Louisville, Kentucky, and Comedy Caravan, the big club here in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I called and found out, of course, naturally I couldn't just get on stage. They didn't know me, I didn't know them. So I asked them about the open mic. And so they told me it was on Wednesdays, and it was from 7:30 until 10, but you had to be there by 7 o'clock in order to sign up. And so I remember, man, my very first open mic, I told people at work, I was like, hey, and they offered to say, yeah, one up there, next Wednesday. So, you guys want to come see me? Come see me. And I didn't expect, really maybe 2 or 3 people that, that I actually was really cool with to come there. But as it turns out, about 40 people from the office, from all over, the office, they showed up. And so when the manager saw that, he actually, he put me towards the very end. I think they had about 30 comedians that night, 30, 35. So yeah, we only got 3 minutes. So he put me towards the end because, he wanted to make sure that there was always a full house, or as close to full as possible, especially with my 35, 40 people there. And I'll never forget, man, I got butterflies. And here's the thing. I still get butterflies to this day, every time I get ready to perform. Every time. And I'm thankful for those butterflies, because what those butterflies tell me is that I haven't mastered it yet. This isn't mundane. This isn't ho-hum. This isn't like, just another show. I get those butterflies and it reminds me, okay, this is that excitement building back up in me. Here's that energy, that's floating in me saying, okay, let's go. And so I got those butterflies, and I went up there, and here's the thing, I had no idea what I was going to say, not a clue. But what I did do is, right before I went on stage, I actually went to the bathroom, I took a knee, and I prayed. And I basically said, God, please give me something to say. And then I thanked him for giving me something to say before he gave me something to say. And so I went on stage, and I'll never forget my very first open mic. I did a joke because I only had 3 minutes, and time was going by so fast. I remember I went on stage, and I was like, very meek, very, very, very quiet, and, almost scary, like a church mouse. And, I said, thank you so much for coming out. You all give it up for yourselves. And they would clap. And I said, give it up for the other comedians that you sing. And they would clap. I said, and give it up for the comedy club for having us and letting us do the open mic. And they clap. And then in the middle of them clapping for that, I just screamed, now shut up. I ain't got a lot of time. I started pointing my watch because I didn't. All I had was 3 minutes. That right there took probably about 25 to 30 seconds. So that leaves me with, about 2 to 2.5 minutes. So I said, shut up, I ain't got enough time. And so I went into this story about being poor and being kidnapped when I was, 6. And basically the joke went, I was poor. I was so, me and my family, it was 5 of us, man. We were so poor. Matter of fact, we didn't have nothing. We were so poor, we couldn't afford to owe. We couldn't afford to owe. We was just, and I said when I was 6 years old, I was kidnapped, snatched out of the ghetto. And basically, when the kidnappers asked for it, the information called my mom for a ransom, they asked her and said they was gonna kill me if she didn't pay. And my mom basically told the kidnapper that, basically what was the ransom for, the amount, and the kidnapper said, $13.72. Yeah, $13.72. And so the crowd just bust out laughing. And then I told him, shut up. And then I got emotional. I said, that wasn't what hurt my feelings, the lowball price. I said, what hurt my feelings was when the kidnapper hung up. He turned to me and said that my mama had the nerve to ask him, could he hold a check for 2 weeks? And man, they just fell out, man. I was just like, yeah. Man, it felt good. And the thing about it is there was a guy that was in the audience, I'm not gonna call his name, but he worked at a car lot. He was a sales manager at a car lot. And he saw me, he loved me, and he set me up with studio time, and I cut a CD, he paid for everything. And I cut the CD. He, I got the CD, and he told me that, he'd come, and he stopped by my job and pick it up because he wanted to hear it. And, I gave it to him, and he said he'd give it back to me. He wanted to listen to it. And I did make a copy of it. Well, it turns out I never heard from that guy again. He never returned my calls. I called over to his car lot where he worked. He never returned my calls. I never heard from him again. I didn't have a copy. He had the original. I didn't have anything. And so literally less than a month later, I'm watching BET Comic View, and I literally saw comedians, 2 different comedians doing my jokes word for word. And it crushed me. I was devastated to the point where I actually stopped doing comedy for probably about 5 or 6 years. I was just, because you dream and you say, okay, this is going to be your big break, and this guy's going to help you, and you're going to take off, and then to see that happen, it's just really deflating. But one thing, even though I stopped doing comedy on stage, one thing I never stopped doing was I never stopped being myself. I never stopped joking. I never stopped creating in my mind. And so what I did was I said, well, I'm not going to write anything down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remember these things, and I'm going to remember in my mind. And instead of just telling remembering a joke word for word, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with a topic, like an outline. And from that topic, I'm going to tell a funny story or a funny joke as it relates to that topic. That way, I don't have to really write anything down because, it's all off the top of my head for the most part. And so to this day, that's basically, what I do. I come up with a topic, and I come off the top of my dome on that topic. And I've been very successful. And it's been a grind. It has. I toured. I had the privilege of touring with a national touring stage play called In Love with Tyrone, written, directed, and produced by Erica Nicole Malone. It starred Leon from the Temptation movies and the 5 Heartbeats, as well as Robin Givens. My character was Grady, the best friend of the lead actor, Tyrone. And so, I was blessed, but that comes from grinding. And I'll never forget the biggest compliment the director and producer and writer, Miss Erica Nicole Malone gave me. She said, DeAndre, one thing I like about you and I love is that you never take a moment off, meaning you treat rehearsal just like it's the night of the show. I've never seen you rehearse. I always see you perform like it's actual showtime. And that level of commitment and professionalism is something I'll always remember. Now, I say it to say this. After of course, when COVID hit and everything stopped, I was recently contacted by Miss Erica Nicole Malone and her husband Brian about doing a possible residency in Vegas with the play. And that all comes from just me putting in the work and grinding and showing up for rehearsal and treating it as it is actual showtime, and not taking a rehearsal as, just time to kind of joke around and be silly and kind of be lazy. No, just treating it as it's an actual show, and we're in front of 3,000-4,000 people, just like it would be at a normal show. And so when you do that, what you have to understand is you have to be committed and you have to grind and understand that even when you're practicing, people are watching. So my advice to you is understand this: your grind shows your gratitude. Your grind shows your gratitude. It represents your gratitude. I don't care who you're working for, what you're working on. Your grind will always reflect your gratitude for the situation, for the moment, for the person who's giving you that opportunity. So let's grind and show our gratitude in everything we do. Who am I, America? Hey, I'm DeAndre Ivory. I'm a comedian. I'm funny sometimes, hilarious all the time, and I thank you so much for watching.
We're grateful for who God is. That list of names given, holy and mighty and all of that, that's just the beginning of things. When Jesus was jousting with the Pharisees, Jesus made it clear to them that when you start talking about me, you're talking about something that surpasses Abraham. Because before Abraham was, he said, my name is I am. In other words, when you open up the book to look at all of the good things that a person can possibly be mighty and triumphant and awesome and holy, he says that that's just the beginning of it. He had to close the...
Who am I? I'm Pastor Junior Trent. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. Two parents, a father and a mother. Father was a heroin user, mom was an alcoholic. We went all throughout the east side of Virginia, going back and forth to Winston-Salem. Finally, my father found a job down in Winston-Salem, and so we started to live in Winston-Salem. Pops got on heroin real bad, left me, my sister, my brother, and my mom did the best she could till we got homeless. Then we stayed at the bottom of a church in Winston-Salem off of Martin Luther King Boulevard. And as we began to live there, living homeless, didn't know what to do. My mom, she prostituted to get enough money to put us on a Greyhound bus to carry us to our grandmother's house in Virginia. I remember when my mom dropped us off at our grandmother's doorsteps and promised that she would come back and take care of us when she could. And at that point in time, my grandmother raised us, a Christian lady. She was a holiness lady, believed in God. She believed in something that I didn't understand at a young age, but yet as I grew older, I understood what Grandma was talking about when she talked about God. As Grandmother could take care of us, she had sugar diabetes, ended up losing her leg, and ended up moving us to Hampton, Virginia, where we stayed with an aunt for a few years. And we were kids who were growing up into Hampton, Virginia. My grades were excellent. I was an honor roll student. I was vice chairman of Phoebus High School in Hampton. We stayed there for a little while, and then Grandmother couldn't take care of us anymore, so we moved back to foster homes. And foster homes where my uncle in Virginia took us back into his fold. Stayed there for a little while, got in trouble, hit a kid in the head with some brass knuckles, and my uncle moved me back home to Newark, New Jersey with my father. Stayed there for years, played basketball, even had a scholarship to play for Seton Hall University. But yet, as life was going in the crime of Newark, New Jersey, I started to dib and dab and looking at people sell drugs at a young age. So when I got back on my feet, decided to move back to Virginia, and then at that age, I began to get my hands on drugs and stuff like that. Then I fell, and I went to the federal program for 3.5 years in Petersburg. It was sweet. Didn't understand my life journey at that point, but knew at an early age that God was pulling on my heart. So then after that, I began to got out of prison no less than 18 months, got back into the game, met a lot of people, met a lot of important people at Petersburg camp, got back out, started trying to do what I do, and ended up getting locked back up for a 13-year bid in the feds. As I began to get my journey into the Fed system for the 13 years, I remember the day that I was talking to my dad, and my father used to tell me, said, son, you always sending these pictures of you, look like you're chilling. You got your chains on, you got your new sneakers on, and you got a 300-month sentence, which means 25 years in a federal penitentiary. And my father gave me this theme that I've carried with me throughout the rest of my life. My father told me that until you get tired, nothing is going to change. And I couldn't really realize what my dad had meant to me at that time when he said it. But as time went on, when I was in this prison, I began to understand that I had to get tired for change to come. So one day I got really tired. I got tired of waking up at the 4 o'clock count, tired of coming in early, could never see the nightlight. Got tired of eating all those same old Monday through Saturday menus. Tired of eating chicken on Friday, fish on Thursdays. Got tired of playing ball until I got tired. And then one day I found myself on my knees in my cell, and I began to cry out to God. And then after that, God began to change my life. And as my life began to change, we finally had gotten Barack Obama had begun to become president, and they changed the crack law. And then God immediately released me from prison. And as my life journey, I fell for the second time. I fell, but this time I knew God, knew what God was about. And I promised God that if He had let me out of prison early, that I would serve Him till the day I die. Once I got out of prison, some of my mentors were guys who didn't want me to fall back into the lifestyle that I lived. One of the guys was one of my elders of the church, Elder Kenny Fitzgerald. Another one was Pastor Kevin Canody. Another friend of mine, Darrell Cruz, and Danny. Those kind of guys that were driving me into staying out this time, because the percentage of you going back to prison after you come out was like a 97% chance that you'll go back to prison within 18 months. And I wanted to break that stigma by saying, this time I'm going to do the right thing, because I had to learn to get tired for change to come. So if I'm going to include to somebody today, you might be going through things and it's okay with you, but I believe that change can come when you get tired of doing that same old thing. And as I begin this life journey now, I've been home 12 years now. I've been faithful to my community. I am doing volunteer work in the prisons forum. I got a co-host of a TV show, a radio show called Nght. I'm a part of an organization called Project Imagine, which helps young gang members find their way through what they go through. I'm a pastor of a church. My church name is Change of Heart Outreach Ministry, where our theme will always be, until you get tired, nothing is going to change. Currently, right now, trying to do the best that I can to give people opportunity to understand that life can change if you fall. It's up to you to get back up and find the direction that God gave you. I believe that every man and woman, God gave a talent. And in that talent, you can find yourself. And if you can find yourself in your talent, your life could be a lot better if you just give it a try. I believe that faith can be the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, meaning that if you're a young brother out there today that might be lost, you might have no parent. You might have one parent, you might have both of your parents, but your life may be leading you to a life of crime. Remember that the chances that you take in crime can only lead you to prison or death. Luckily, God has spared my life from death so that I would get a chance to tell someone today that you can make it if you try. If you give up that lifestyle, if you try to work hard and try to be what you are. Right now, I'm happy to say that I've made it. I beat the statistics. 97% said that I'll be back in prison, but my mindset had to change. My heart had to change. I had some friends that I had to cut loose. Even some family members I had to cut loose, because even sometimes family members don't believe that your change has come, but when your change comes, you will find yourself trying to work hard. Every day today, I work hard. Everything that I get, I earn. I wake up early in the morning and begin my day with asking God to bless me in the ways that He's been blessing me. So I encourage somebody today to stand up and understand that you may have made a bad decision in your life, but it's the turnaround that's going to make a difference. I tell people that I heard LL Cool J say a long time ago, the best revenge is success. So don't get distressed about where you at. Always focus on what you can be. Some of you got great talents. Explore your talent and take your talent to the next level so that you can be the man or the woman that God called you to be. And I believe that God will move for you just like He moved for me. But I had to get tired, and get sick and tired of what I was going through. I've been homeless, I've been in foster care, I've been through it all, but yet I'm still here, and I found myself. And when I found myself, God began to tell me who I was. And who am I? I am Pastor Junior Trent. I was a child that had two parents. Unfortunately, my parents, they did the best that they could, but the best thing that my mom could have done is drop me at my grandmother's footsteps, who taught me about God. I remember the times that my grandmother would go in a room and cry out to this unseen person. But every time that she went and cried out to this unseen person, things were happening in her life. So I didn't really understand it until I got a little older, and when I realized that God was who He was to me in my life, I began to understand that He is real. So today, somebody can be encouraged that there is a God, and that God knows you and He loves you. And you can turn your life around if you just give God the opportunity to show you who He is. So today, I'm encouraging someone to know, who am I? I am a person that God loves. I am a person that God reached out to. I am a person that God created to be something better than what I thought I could have been. See, the statistics also had me to be locked up, thrown away, or in a grave. But God saw fit for me to live, to tell my story to somebody and be encouraged enough to know that change can come, but you got to be the one that's committed to it. I believe today that if you would just open up your heart and pour out your heart to God, I believe that God can make a way out for you. Yeah, life is rough. The streets are rough. I've been in all of it. I've been in the streets of Newark, New Jersey, when the percentage of living to make it to your apartment was less than none. I've been in the streets where people didn't even get to see their mom and dad on the next day. I've been in the streets selling drugs and doing everything that you can ever think of, but I made it through. So somebody today, you have made it through. You've gotten a chance to do right by your life. And God is giving you that opportunity to do right by your life. But brother and sister, I'm encouraging you to stand strong, and you can make it. I believe that if you put yourself around good, positive people, I believe if you got somebody that say they truly love you and love you for who you are, they won't give you no drugs to sell. They won't give you a gun to tote. They will give you some kind of lesson to learn that your life can be better than it is. So today I'm encouraging somebody to stand up and believe that you are who you say you are. Unfortunately, when I was going into the prisons, I didn't find my true talent. But one day I was outside of this camp and I was washing this car. And this is what I'm trying to get somebody to understand, that, yeah, I ended up having a small car wash detail shop, but it was something that I really loved doing. Yeah, I was a big time drug dealer. Yeah, I sold drugs. Yeah, I had it going on, but I had a true talent in washing cars. And some people may laugh and say, well, yeah, man, you wash cars. What is that going to bring you? Well, that was my God-given talent to be physically able to do something with my life. Some of you might be photographers. Some of you might be drawers. Some of you might be even grown to do computer knowledge. But whatever the talent that God gives you, you can grow from it, man. You can make it. And I believe that you can turn your life around. Now I'm a successful business owner. Now I have a nice car detail shop and tire shop. Yes, I'm a pastor of a church. I'm doing what God entitled me to do, but I found my way. And in finding my way, I thank God for what He's done for me. So today I want to encourage somebody. Who am I? I am a survivor of a foster home. I went from foster home to foster home. Even though I went through that, God still made a way out for me to be able to stand today and give somebody some encouraging words to move forward. So today I hope that I said something that may encourage you to be who you are today. Be what God wants you to be. And if you be what God wants you to be, it's nothing. The sky can't hold you. No limits can hold you or bound you. You just got to stay focused and be real with yourself that you are better than what they said you were. Because today, I am who God called me to be, and I'm better than what they thought I was. So focus on your lifestyle, focus on your dreams, and make your dreams reality. I tell people today, nothing comes to a dreamer but a dream. But if you push your dream into a reality, you can be successful and you can have a life that you've never even imagined. So stay strong, stay positive, and be focused, and understand that God is in control of all things. I know you may go through some things. I know you may be in a gang. You may be a drug dealer. You may be homeless. But there is a way out. And in that way out, you can believe that God will do just what he said he's going to do. Who am I, America? I am Pastor Junior Trent of Change Your Heart Outreach Ministries in Danville, Virginia. And I can tell you today that if it had not been for God, I don't know what I would do today. I think that God spared my life from all types of things. I've been in prison where people didn't come out of prison. I've been in streets where people didn't come out of streets. Today, we're burying more people today than ever more, but God still is in control. And I believe that your life can be better if you just depend on God in these last days. So be encouraged to understand that you can make it if you trust in God. And I truly believe that God will make a way out of no way for you. Who I am now, America? Well, I'm Pastor Junior Trent, 12 years out of prison. I've got my own business. I created a business called You Shine, I Shine, car care detail center. I've created jobs for people in the 12 years, over 100 jobs for young men and women who tried to strive to get jobs. I've been pastoring for over 4 years now in my own ministry. And even in creating my jobs and keep creating jobs, I've got in touch with an organization called Project Imagine by my good friend Robert David, who came into this area in 2018 and got a great impact in the communities to help young guys who are in gangs. And we've turned those guys, gangs into reality to find jobs. We took out the, you have to have a GED, and we helped them get a job and get their GED while they work. We are now creating more jobs in this area now because we care for our people. Our church is a church that cares about people, and our theme has always been, until you get tired, nothing's going to change. And why do we say this theme? Is because we find that in this day and time, you got to get tired of something. And when you get tired of something, you will realize that God can help you out. So today, I just want to encourage somebody today to know who I am today. I am who God called me to be. And I'm glad and proud to be who God called me to be. So with that, I just hope that somebody today understand that God is in control, and I'm happy to be who I am today.
Action.
All right, some of the other great things that I'm doing into the community now is trying to grab out the young guys and get them to find out what their purpose is in life. Some of these guys today have the same type of lifestyle that I live. They have one mother or maybe two parents, one or both on drugs, don't have a way at home to find peace. So now today we're trying to reach out to those who are in those type of situations to help them find their way so that they can make it. Today we also are carrying a theme called a youth explosion, but a family affair, because we believe that if we could touch the mother or the father and being able to help them change their lives, it can make it more better and suitable for the youth to be able to come home and have a nice and peaceful home. So I'm driven today to tell somebody today to be encouraged that help is on its way. Right now, our community have all the resources to be able to help young men and women get jobs. Jobs here now are very high for a person to not have a job than not to have a job. So our community now, we are driven to push out all of the excuses for young men and women not to have something today, to have something and teach them to be better persons that they are. And I pray that I can help somebody not fall the way that I failed. But if they did fall, I do have voluntary prison where I go into prison forums on the and I go into the prisons to remind people that there can be a change. I am a testimony. I am the evidence that change can come if you commit yourself to being who God called you to be. And then we have our radio show called TalkNet, where we get on the radio and we talk about things and talk about God and talk about things that's happening to folk today, that they may listen and be encouraged to know that God is still in control of their lives. If they give him their life, the change can come. So with that, I just want people to be encouraged that I can help you if you need me. Just give me a call. I'm not too far from you. I'm live on Facebook. You can find me at Junior Trent Facebook, and just give me a call to be encouraged to know that God is in control. And if I can help you push some youth from what they're doing, I believe that I can help you by trying to help them find out who they are and follow their dreams to be a successful person in life. I am successful because I gave up that life and I trusted God to move the way that he moved so that I can be who he wants me to become. So today, be encouraged. Who am I? I am Pastor Junior Trent of Change Your Heart Outreach Ministries. And our theme will always be, until you get tired, nothing is going to change. You got to get tired, my brother and my sister. Are you tired? If you're tired, then change can come. That direction can be led easily by you saying that I don't want to be a gang member no more. I don't want to be on drugs anymore. I don't want to have this life of crime anymore. And when you begin to repeat those things in your heart, change can come, because I believe that you can find your way, but you can't find your way until you get tired of it. If you're enjoying the lifestyle that you live in, you can't change. And the only opportunity that you're going to have in that environment is prison or a grave. And today, we don't want you to be in a prison or grave. We want you to be out here to be successful in what God wants you to be, man or woman. I want you to wake up today and understand that there's something better for you, but you got to get tired of where you at. And if you ain't tired where you at, then you got a whole lot of life to learn. And I don't want to see you go to prison, and I definitely don't want to see you at a graveside. I wore my black suit more than I can imagine now for funerals after funerals. I'm just tired of going to funerals. In fact, I don't even want to go to another funeral. How many funerals that we've been having in these last 6 months has just stressed me out. But until then, I just want somebody to be encouraged enough to know that success can come, but you got to work at it. You got to work for it. I tell a person, that if you don't want to work for it, I don't have no empathy for you, because the Bible tells me a man don't work, don't eat. So with that, keep your minds focused on what you can be in life and be who God wants you to be, because that's what's important right now, to be successful. And to be successful, you got to work hard at it. And that's what I did. I worked hard at it, and I put God first, and I believe that God blesses me through my hard work. So today, I just want to encourage somebody to be encouraged enough to know that change can come, but only if you get tired. So today, I am somebody. I am who God called me to be. Thank you.
We're grateful for who God is. That list of names given, holy and mighty and all of that, that's just the beginning of things. When Jesus was jousting with the Pharisees, Jesus made it clear to them that when you start talking about me, you're talking about something that surpasses Abraham. Because before Abraham was, he said, my name is I am. In other words, when you open up the book to look at all of the good things that a person can possibly be mighty and triumphant and awesome and holy. He says that that's just the beginning of it. He had to close.
Who I am, America. I am Dr. Shon from New Orleans, Louisiana. I was born in 1964, and I grew up in a period where we had what's called wards in Louisiana, the 7th Ward. I grew up in the 7th Ward, and the 7th Ward was unique because there were more mixed heritage people, i.e. French, Spanish, African descent. And because it was such a eclectic environment, we had a unique look about us. And that look would also bring with it challenges and troubles, because people thought, well, if you're from the 7th Ward, you can pass. Some of the people could pass, quote unquote, for white. And other people had different hair textures. That became a big issue. And so I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of issues around how you look, the complexion of your skin, the texture of your hair, which is a very interesting environment to grow up in. I grew up in a 2-person household. My dad was a longshoreman. My mom worked at a laundromat. My mom was the one who looked European in our family. I didn't realize that, like she was greatly Hispanic and Spanish. She had English descent as well and French descent. And so my dad married her. He was 43. She was 33, her second marriage, his second marriage. And I was the oldest child. And as we grew in a household, I have 2 other siblings, 2 sisters, one year younger than me, and then another 2 years younger than me. And so as we grew up in New Orleans, in the inner city, we recognized that we kind of had it differently than many. It was like we had a privileged lifestyle, if you will. Although I grew up in a shotgun home for the first 10 years, a shotgun home in New Orleans means that the house was straight through. And if you had a gun, you can shoot from the front to the back. Therefore, they call it a shotgun. You had the narrow alleyways, and my grandmother lived next door on my mom's side. But then I found out she really wasn't my grandmother. She was my mom's mother-in-law from her first marriage. But they became very influential in my young life because I did not know who was really my grandmother. My grandmother on my dad's side lived in Gloucester, Mississippi, which is where he hailed from. My dad had green eyes, and he was about, a few shades darker than me. And but his hair texture was almost of that of an Indian. And it was an interesting combination with he and my mom. And when we would go to Mississippi, then I found out that my grandmother was born as a concubine. So in other words, her mother was the slave owner's a concubine. And then hence came my grandmother, Beulah Haynes. And then, of course, she had my dad and his brothers. And I always wondered why many of them came out different complexions. My dad, brothers, that is, and some of them were fair skinned, some of them were very light. And I didn't understand that. How could they all be brothers and sisters? Well, it turned out that the genetics of my grandmother, Beulah, was of mixed heritage. Therefore, it was passed down to her children. And so now you get the picture of how I'm growing up in this eclectic environment where the emphasis is on, you think you're better or you think you're less. And there were internal wars within the community. not only were there internal wars with ethnicity and who you look like and the skin complexion, because that was big in those days. If you were what's called, and many people don't know this, but there was terms like mulatto, which means you were 50-50, half European, half African. Okay. Then there were terms like quadroon, which would have been like my mom, 75% European, 25% African. And then there was octoroon. And octoroon meant you were 1/8 African and everything else, 7/8 you were European descent. And so those became lawsuits in America, the early America, about could you pass and who you would become if you get the rights of a quote unquote white person. And so all of this shaped who I was, I think, growing up, because it was a big deal. The lighter you were, you somehow had more privileges in society. And then I began to understand that as I grew up. Now, even though we were what was considered well off, because my dad earned about $50,000 a year. My mom, in those days, in the 70s, that was big money. My mom earned another up to $20,000. So you're talking a household with $70,000. I was driving my first car when I was 15. My dad said, you have to work. I had a work ethic. He was a workaholic. He passed that on to me. And so I worked growing up. I had to pay for my insurance and he paid the car note. I remember this was about $150 for the car note and about $150 for the insurance. And so he helped me buy that first car, a Ford Granada. And my friends, they thought we were well off, because here I am at 15 years old driving my own car to school. But that did not mean there were no opportunities for drugs in my neighborhood. My cousins, my family became very much inundated in drugs. In fact, they were drug sellers for the neighborhood. Alcohol was prevalent. I lived up to 10 years old, 3 doors down from a barroom. On every corner in New Orleans, I say that, or in the inner city, almost, it felt like, it wasn't every corner, but it was very close to being on many corners. There was what was called a barroom. That barroom, everything would go on: drugs, illicit sex, prostitution, shootings. So I grew up seeing shootings. I saw killings. I saw the police coming through, people running down the alleyways. I grew up in a crime ridden neighborhood. Now, New Orleans, as you know, is in the top 5 today for killings and murder. Baton Rouge. It wasn't like that in those days, but crime was high, murder was high, and murder against ourselves, people who look like us, killing ourselves. So somehow in my upbringing, I got this crazy idea that family is important, from my grandmother and my grandfather who lived next door. And they said, you're going to be different. And then I had what I call a triad, my mom and dad, who had me do the spiritual, where I would be able to get my spiritual foundation. And then I had my aunt and uncle, Marguerite and Edgar, who taught me the practical recreation side of life. So my dad never came to any of my games. My dad didn't do that, but he brought me to church. He taught me work ethic. My grandfather is the one who said, you're not like everyone else. You're going to be different. And I never knew what that meant until I went to college, and I went to University of New Orleans, and I was on scholastic probation. I mean, I was excelling in high school. I graduated in the top 15. I was, I think, number 13. I was in all AP honors courses. And then finally, when I went to college for engineering, I was on scholastic probation, and a recruiter had come to high school. And I remembered that, and I need to make a change in my life. And I went to the Air Force in July of 1984 after graduating high school in May of 1982. And the rest, they say, is the history. And that was the things that would shape my life for the future. And my story has become an amazing journey. Yes. And so as I entered the military, I was able to change my life. One thing when I was growing up is that when my grandfather, who I found out was actually not my physical grandfather or biological, but he was my grandfather because he's the only grandfather I knew. I neglected to mention that my mom's dad and mom were both deceased by the time I was born. In fact, my grandmother on my maternal grandmother died the year I was born in 1964, and my grandfather had died 2 years before that. And he was Guatemalan, some say Cuban. We don't know what he was. He was a mixed heritage once again. And my grandmother on my mom's side, we do know she was Irma Millier. So she was of French descent, and she looked basically French. So again, mixed heritage. And so, but when I was in the military, I never had gotten into drugs. I had never gotten into alcohol. I had never smoked. I know it was amazing growing up in that environment with barrooms and crime and drugs and violence. Somehow I was spared. My cousins were in and out of the prison. Even my sister was affected at one point in her life by the ravaging of drugs. But I chose never to go that route. Somehow God had his hand around me, I believe, and protected me for my destiny. So I went in as an enlisted man, 1984. As I said, I used my ASVAB, that's the test you take to enter, from high school, because I was in all honor courses. I was doing pretty well in high school, like I said. And so my scores were high enough 2 years later to get me in. And I went to England, my first assignment. And this is where the world opened up for me. So I started off enlisted. I was in transportation. My job was to ship items around the world for military importance, almost as if you see UPS and FedEx today. That was my job. But while I was doing that, I went to college, and I continued my college from scholastic probation. I came into the Air Force with 27 hours. And so I continued and worked on it, and I acquired my associates in logistics management. And then I went on to get my bachelor's in industrial technology and engineering from Southern Illinois University. So within quick 5 years of being in the military, I excelled in the military and excelled academically. At the same time, I found my destiny in becoming a minister of the gospel. Although I was unlicensed and all of that, didn't have the education at the moment, in ministry, I had the calling. And so then I began to see how all of this was coming together in my life. And I became an officer. I applied and was accepted in 1991. And so after 6 years and a little more, after being in the military, 1990 rather, I had completed officer training school by February of 91. And so now I am moving forward. I am a lieutenant from the inner city. And the thing about being a lieutenant in the Air Force is, and many people don't realize this, in the early 90s, in 90, 91, there were not many African Americans who were officers. we were still living in a time where we were feeling the ramifications from the Jim Crow era up into the 1964 and 1965, the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act in 65. And so things had not changed, but the military, as always, was further ahead than society. But as I grew in the ranks of the military, I realized there were not many people who looked like me. And I became a role model for many of that it was possible. So I was a nuclear launch officer and space operations officer. My wife, Madeline, who I married right after coming into the military, did not want me to become a pilot. My commanders wanted me to be a pilot, but my wife said, no, you'll be gone all the time. Well, I became a missile launch officer, nuclear weapons. I was gone 8 days a week, 24 hours each time. And so it was always the laughing joke. I was gone anyway. And so I went up the ranks and my career excelled as an airman. I was up for Outstanding Airman of the Year when I first came in, the 12 Outstanding Airmen. I was the John Levitot Leadership Award winner. So all of these things, John Levitot was a hero in Vietnam. And all of these things just lined up. My career exploded and excelled. And so as my career was trajectorying up, my influence started expanding. And so all of those teachings from my grandfather, from my parents on the spiritual side, my grandfather on the confidence side, believe in yourself. And then my aunt with the nurturing, the recreational side. So it was like this perfect triangle in my life where I was well balanced and I began to move up, as I said, in all dimensions of my life. We had a family. We had 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. Today, one is a nurse, one is a dental hygienist, and my son is a hospital administrator. So proud of them as young adults contributing. But then something happened as I continued to move up the ranks. I had the sense of the calling to the ministry. So by 1999, I had started seminary school and got my master's in arts and in my master's of divinity equivalency. So now I went from 0 degrees in 1984 when I entered to 1999, 15 years later, I had 4 degrees. And then I became what's called a chaplain. And then that gave me even more influence and more spiritual influence. And then I started seeing my destiny of what I was to do to help people to be successful. And that's where I changed my trajectory from this technical engineer guy, space operations, to my sole focus was helping people to develop and grow. Then I introduced, or the Lord put on my heart, as I continue to excel in the chaplaincy, move up the ranks, major and lieutenant colonel, all the way to the rank of colonel, I began to realize that all of my upbringing in that eclectic background, in that multicultural background, now will come to fruition for a purpose. And that purpose was to let people know that you can become who you want to be and who you're destined to be, despite what society says about your color or your ethnicity. It's about your character, as Dr. King would often espouse. It's about who we desire to be. And so I began to shift my message about who you are versus about the color of you are. And then I started realizing that this antiquated separation that we do of white and black is made up. And then I start looking at the connotations of the word. If you're white, and then if you're black, white means pure and holy and righteous. Black means evil, void of color. And then you can look at society, blackmail, black ship, black day, blacklist. If you think of white, you think of the white lie, a doctor's white lab coat. And so I said, we have to move from that in America and become Americans. We have to move from different races, which is a made up social construct, and say, no, we are one human race. And that became my platform. Even as I went to the Iraq War, I went to Afghanistan War, my pledge to America was to bring unity. A divided America cannot stand. And as I began to sound the trumpet, as I began to travel around the world, I ended my career 35 years later as a colonel. And I did not make general. Many thought I should have made general. I felt I should have made general, but then I decided to retire early and become a senior pastor, which is what I'm doing now at Highland Christian Center in Portland, Oregon. But the one thing I'll leave you with is that I had the platform of a lifetime as a colonel in the United States Air Force, a rarity for African descent. And I began to trumpet the voice of reason that we are Americans. I've walked the walk. I've sat in the meetings. I've led in the battlegrounds. I've marched. And I am telling you, we are Americans, and we need to become one and stop the division over color lines, because I found out that just because I have more melanin in my DNA does not make me a less of a man. You can become whatever you're destined to become with your effort and with your faith and with your hope. And of course, I leave you with this, that God was instrumental in my career, in this 35-year career that saw me win hundreds of awards and recognized at the highest levels in the Air Force. So I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be of African descent. I'm proud to be of a mixed heritage, but mostly I'm proud to be a child of God. Who am I, America? Again, I'm Dr. Shon Nayland. I am also an author of the book, The Courage to Stand, A New America. You can Google me, you can go online, you can get this book today. And this book summarizes my upbringing. It summarizes my thoughts on life, where I believe we can change America. We don't want to go back to the old ways in America. We want to make a new America, an America where all people are free, where we all have the rights and privileges in social justice, policing. The law is applicable to all of us, and we all have a right to pursue happiness, and we have a right to create and own businesses, become who we want to become. I am not surprised at the greatness that is happening in America, especially for those of African descent, because all we needed was the opportunity. And as we celebrate Black History Month or African American History Month, I want you to remember that the greatness is inside of you. Don't ever let anyone tell you, based on the complexion of your skin, the darkness or the melanin in our DNA. Every human has melanin. Don't ever let anyone tell you you cannot become. It is not about hair texture, complexion. It's about our character and who we are. Determine in yourself that you are ready to make a difference in someone's life. And if you want to know more about me, get my book. Again, that's The Courage to Stand, A New America, with Dr. Shon Nayland. And I am ready for America to change. The killing, the violence, if we have self-esteem, if we believe in who we are, we can stop the self-annihilation, the drug use, the criminality, the absentee from fatherhood. I address all of this in the book. I address the color designation and why I believe we no longer should identify white and Black. We should be called humans. We are Americans. We are people of different ethnicities and cultures, and we can respect one another. And so I believe that you and I together can make a difference and create a new and better America. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.